Hello, I'm Joan Zerkovich, Head of Operations at AAIS. As most of you know, AAIS developed the openIDL platform several years ago in order to streamline regulatory reporting. Thanks to several proof of concepts, openIDL is delivering on its promise. We've been able to demonstrate how you can mine information and gather insights without having to transfer or share your proprietary data. As a Linux Foundation project, openIDL is poised to deliver even greater value to the industry as an open source platform. Of course, it can't happen without active engagement of carriers, regulators, and leaders willing to step up and champion a whole new way of collaborating. Which brings me to my guest today. Not only is he the Chief Product and Underwriting Officer for Commercial and Specialty Business at the Hanover, he's also the chair of the openIDL Linux Foundation Project Board. I'm very pleased to welcome Scott Grieco to The Pulse.
Thanks, Joan. It's great to be here today.
So, Scott, you have a very interesting role at the Hanover. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your responsibilities?
Sure. I actually have three main responsibilities. One is the corporate underwriting, the governance, and the guidance that we give to all of our businesses, along with then working with the businesses strategically to help them fulfill their goals. Second, our risk solutions, or our loss control department, as known by us, is also part of my responsibility. And then lastly, our product development area, where we create all of our new products, capabilities, endorsements, and things like that.
Wow, that's quite a bit. That's great. So it sounds like you've been around for a long time in the industry and oversee quite a bit. What's the biggest change with respect to the insurance product that you've seen over your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that a lot as I get older and wiser in the insurance business. I think one of the biggest things that's changed is the complexity of the product. We've added complexity because of legal requirements, compliance requirements, customer demand. As we learn more and build expertise, we're able to use that knowledge to build out bigger and better products that can be servicing specific individuals. They're more customized today for industries than they used to be. And so I think there's been a lot of build around that that's helped us really understand what customer needs are. And so that additional complexity that we've added to it is really what's driving a lot of the change that I've seen over the last 20, 30 years.
Of course, data and technology have played an important role in risk assessment and product development, risk management, mitigation, and a host of other product and service enhancements. How does Hanover leverage data to deliver value to the customer?
So we collect data in many places, our underwriting areas, through applications and supplemental applications, through our loss control department, and through our claims department, just to name a few. And when we take all this information and bring it together with some of the third-party data, it creates a lot of analytics that we can do from that information. From that, we can create trends. We can look at what the business has done historically, but it also gives us a light into what's coming into the future. We really need to build those insights and the expertise so that we can reduce or eliminate risks that we see working with our agents and our customers. And so I feel like there's a lot of innovation that comes along with that. And the work we do with openIDL and that we're about to embark on really helps us use those new technologies. One example that I like to use in our loss control department, or risk solutions as we call it, is the water sensor technology. This is a technology that allows us to monitor pipes if they start to freeze or if they're starting to leak. We can quickly mitigate that and either reduce the loss significantly or eliminate it altogether if we can catch it in time. That kind of technology didn't exist even 3 or 4 years ago. And so as we see these things move forward, the technology advancements, we want to take advantage of that. And the data and the analytics that we get from that helps us to predict further where we could see claims coming.
Well, certainly the volume of data and the complexity is changing quite a bit, and the cost of managing all that data, let alone the security and privacy issues, must keep you up at night. So what challenges do you face in managing data given all of these concerns?
Well, I think you said it, Joan. I think the two biggest things are the security of the data and the privacy of the data. And I think those are the two things that our industry has added to the process. We get information from both internal and external sources, and keeping that close to the vest is really important. We know that the pace is quickening for the amount of data that we're getting, and our turnaround time to give it back to people and that can use this information is getting more and more critical. We have to be able to react to things quicker. Between the technological advances we've made in real time, a lot of times we can get information in the hands of the people that can make decisions. So whether that's a new risk that we're going to write, or the data is going to be used and stored for regulatory reporting purposes, we need to be nimble. We need to be sure, though, that it's going to stay safe. It gets expensive. A lot of the systems that we deal with are manual still. A lot of companies are still using legacy systems that aren't quite as easy to pull information together. And I think that's causing issues. So there's a manual component to that that also adds just a little more risk.
Well, a lot of the challenges you just mentioned, Scott, it's often used along with the term democratization of data. You hear it a lot these days. What does that mean to you, and how important is the idea of democratized data to you?
Making data more accessible for us and the regulators is really important. The way we've done it in the past together isn't really working for us as we go forward. There's been too many changes, and there's been too much that we can't fulfill the needs of. Distributed data that's well understood through the data catalogs, giving data to the end users and use it in a different way. We need to put it in the hands of the end users in a way that allows them to make decisions, to do analytics, and to find the relevant data that's going to be helpful to whatever decision they're trying to make. And when we give the right information to the regulators and allow them that process, then they can iterate as well by going to the sources instead of having the process become cumbersome and, as it's been, pretty antiquated. openIDL is creating data standards in a very secure way. We know what good data looks like, and once we have that, we're putting that in front of the regulators and ourselves and allowing ourselves to ask the right questions so that we can come up with better answers than we have in the past. There's a greater opportunity for collaboration between us and the regulators. The data is anonymized, it's aggregated, and it's secure. And so what more do we want from that? It only takes into question their needs and their questions that they have, but it allows them to iterate and come back with more questions that are relevant to the problem they're trying to solve. We too can do that and come up with better answers by having the end users have better access to fresh, relevant information.
So as a leading advisory organization, AAIS plays an intermediary role between regulators and carriers. How does regulatory compliance fit into your workflows at the Hanover, and how costly is that effort?
Yeah, both regulatory and compliance are significant factors. Every product that we file must meet each state's requirements. And if you think about many carriers that have multiple operating companies, and we make filings in all of those, you can see the complexity just adds up pretty quickly. The work done by our product and our actuarial teams then gets reviewed by many other constituents within the company, from compliance to legal to claims and many others. And so that just begins to add more dollars each time that we create a new product, including the regulatory work and the compliance work that has to be met. Sometimes the follow-up work after the states review that filing requires us to respond to those requirements. That then creates another loop of information that becomes another set of informations that we need to exchange. And this can go through a process a few times before we get a final approval. Once we get approval, then that goes into the maintenance bucket of things that we need to keep and maintain while we continue to work on new products. So this list just keeps going on, but the base gets bigger. And so that adds a lot of complexity, which also adds people time and then real hard dollars with IT work.
Well, that brings us to openIDL, the data and information sharing platform built on blockchain distributed ledger technologies. As I mentioned in my introduction, you're serving as the chair of the board of the openIDL project at the Linux Foundation. For those of all of us who don't know, can you briefly describe what openIDL is and what it's built to do?
The original thought behind openIDL was how to use blockchain technology in the industry to make this a better and safer place. And some of the earliest ways that we wanted to try that was through experiments and pilots, such as data calls and things that we use for regulatory reporting purposes. Some of those data calls included, over the last couple of years, COVID-related data calls for business interruption insurance. It includes things like wildfire and hurricane information that the states are all looking for and interested in finding out more about for their constituents. As you know, these requests are pretty significant and sometimes require multiple iterations before we get them the information that they're really interested in. So this creates another lot of information that goes back and forth. And so we needed a way to secure the information to make sure that we weren't giving them more that they need, but exactly what they needed so that they could do the work that they're intending to do. Well, this is one of the ways that democratization of data provides a way for us to provide a common platform for the reporting purposes. Operational efficiencies and data security, all of which are important. External data networking strategies, such as RMS or a claim service, there's a lot of operating companies to deal with from each carrier. So, as I said before, they probably have a data feed that provides the data from us to them. The loop comes back and it repeats itself over and over again. The strategies and the data strategies that we have around that need to be simple, they need to be secure, and they need to be easy for us to use. And I think the cost effectiveness of using this process allows us to be able to keep the data closer to the source of the production and not worry as much about where it's going, because we then have this secured place to store it so that the insurance departments and any other people that we give permissions to can access the data to use for their whatever they're needing to use it for. It's easier to do business this way. It'll be more collaborative with the insurance departments to do it this way. Each company would get its own node, which would be safe and secure, and only permissions given by us to the regulators to pull data that they are asking for can be used. So it's safe. It's in a place that we don't have to keep going back to. It can be sitting there, and anytime that we need to give them permissions, it's anonymized data, so they're not giving up anything proprietary. And so when you put all that together, it does boil back down to just easy, safe, and hopefully some cost savings come out of this. As I said, with all the legacy systems that we have, this will be a much better way for us to work in the future as we look forward instead of backwards.
Well, that's a great list, Scott. There's a lot of value that openIDL can bring to the Hanover. Can you summarize for us, out of that list of things you just explained to us, what are the most important features of openIDL to an insurer like Hanover?
I think the most important things, when you boil it down, is the security of the data and the cost benefits that we can gain from using this process. Operational efficiencies and data security are very important to us. And when the data from those companies and the filings that we make and the products that we make is transported back and forth, it creates that security issue that we all worry about. So third-party sources also come to us, and we need to secure that data. It comes to us in many different ways, in many different shapes and sizes, and we have to be sure that we can bring it over, secure it, use it, and keep it safe from anybody that might be trying to get it that's not supposed to be, including outside people that are these days always looking to hack into our systems, and our IT security folks are very clearly spending a lot of time on this issue. And by using these networks and these nodes, we can get this information into these systems much more securely and safely.
Well, how important is it that openIDL is an open source platform and a Linux Foundation project?
Well, I think the partnership between the Linux Foundation, AAIS, and us as carriers has been a real collaboration. It's been a great effort. It's important because we got to work together. We'd like to be able to function in a way that allows us to use the data together, as opposed to us giving the data to the regulators and then not knowing exactly what they do with it or what the benefit is to us. It's been mostly our expense to give data, and what we can get from this is also a return. But by working with the three of us as a team, we can come up with some ideas and come up with some new pilots and better ways to use it. We've only talked about this from a data reporting standpoint. There could be many other things that we could think of once we get this up and running.
Well, as you mentioned, openIDL was originally intended to streamline regulatory reporting. It's that collaboration in a way with state regulators that it sounds like it's of real value. The regulators have been active participants and they're gaining interest. So what can you tell us about the early success of openIDL?
I think one of the earliest successes is something just recently where the state of North Dakota put out an RFP, and we won the award to do that and to try this out. The industry in general is really starting to embrace this. There are a number of carriers that have joined now, as well as quite a few states. And there are a lot more that are interested that we're having a lot of conversations with. So I think it's only a matter of time before you'll see this grow, and the value and the benefit that this can bring will certainly be more embraced by the industry.
Well, of course, we always knew there were other applications for the openIDL beyond regulatory reporting. And you've mentioned one, which is the North Dakota uninsured motorist application. We saw that with the COVID-19 business interruption data call, where we joined insurance data with the U.S. Payroll Protection Program database, and were able to gain new insights into how businesses were dealing with the pandemic. So do you see openIDL playing a bigger role in the insurance ecosystem? What potential do you see?
Well, I think that is right. The third parties are interested, whether it's a state or a federal governmental body, interested in certain data at certain points in time. We've got some examples over the last several years. We have to report our terrorism results, and we have other third parties to report to. And this platform allows us to do that without having to create another whole way that we would do that. And so again, it's a cost savings to the insurance companies, but allows a better collaboration of information to be shared with those third parties beyond the regulators and what we do today.
Well, certainly we're just at the beginning of the journey with openIDL. What do you see are the next steps in the development of openIDL?
Yeah, so I think the next step is to try it. We at the Hanover are going to try a pilot this fall on a single state with a data call that we know we have to do each year. And so we're going to try it. We're going to put this in place. We're going to see it work. We're going to share that information with our leadership teams so that they can see how it can come together. And then if that works well, as we expect it will, then we might use it for a larger data call. And maybe it's for one of the regulatory calls that we get that's a broader subject on a whole line of business. We need to experiment, we need to pilot, and we need to keep trying it to see if we can't show ourselves how easy this will be, and that all the things that we've been talking about here today actually will come to fruition.
Well, that's a great example of how we can move forward with openIDL, Scott. And as we mentioned, it requires leaders like yourself in the industry to go out and help us build openIDL. So thank you so much for your time today and your tireless efforts to make openIDL successful.
Thanks, Joan. I think this is certainly the next paradigm shift in the industry. I think this could be a very big thing for us, and it'll be a whole new way to do business. I think I'd just ask people to be open-minded. As I talk about this with my colleagues and colleagues from other insurance companies, it's interesting to get the responses. There's a whole lot of different views about what it is and what it isn't. So I think it's about getting the facts, not the myths. It's getting the leadership teams together, because I think if we only go talk to the IT folks, then the businesses aren't going to necessarily want to support this, and vice versa. So I think it's getting everybody together. I bet you if you went into your company today and your leadership teams in many different departments, somebody's talking about blockchain, somebody's been working this somewhere on the side. They probably haven't put it in their meeting notes somewhere, but they're doing it, and there are knowledgeable people. So seek those people out. Another way you could do it is to join us and the Linux Foundation with AAIS and join up, and we can work together to keep moving forward this idea that we can make this safer, secure, and easier to use.
Well, that was great, Scott. Thank you so much for helping us understand a little bit more about the value and also how to bring that into your organization and bring that information so that many people can collaborate together, not only within your organization, but also with the openIDL project at the Linux Foundation. So if you'd like more information on openIDL or any of the topics mentioned on Tech Talk, please make sure to contact your AAIS Engagement Manager.